Okay, let's talk about the last game on the early game slate. It is the last last 1 p.m. Eastern game. I keep saying things in Mountain Time because that's where I'm from, but the last 1 p.m. Eastern Time game here on the slate. Arguably the most exciting game on the slate this week. The Steelers versus the Titans. We've got the 5-0 Steelers versus the 5-0 Titans. Both these teams have looked unbeatable up to this point, but something's got to give this week. Titans playing this game at home. Steelers have been on a massive tear. Ben Roethlisberger has looked dominant. Their defense has been great. Titans defense has been a low suspect, but their offense has been nuclear. Going to be a fun game. Got a 50.5 over under, a little bit lower than I was expecting it to be. I think the Steelers defense has helped keeping that down a little bit. Titans are actually favored. I was surprised by that because Vegas has been disrespecting the Titans up to this point. Seeing them be favored over the Steelers was a little bit of a surprise to me, but I'll take it. Look for that line to change as the week goes on. Steelers defense has been lights out against quarterbacks and running backs. Best defense against running backs up to this point, but it doesn't matter. You're starting Derrick Henry regardless of matchup. Quarterbacks, tight ends, have been pretty good there. Funnily enough, the place that they've been weak has been against receivers. They've just been kind of like a bend but don't break kind of defense, giving up a lot of yards but not giving up a lot of touchdowns, whereas the Titans, as we mentioned, have been below average across the board on defense. I think this will be a higher scoring game because the Titans' offense has just been so good up to this point. It's really hard to imagine the Steelers coming out and winning this one, and the Steelers find a way to choke these kind of games too, historically. So we'll see who ends up out on top, but from a fantasy perspective, lots of good options here. Love Ben Roethlisberger this week. Titans just gave up a massive game to Deshaun Watson. Should be another fun game here. James Conner definitely remains a good play here. Chase Claypool, Diontae Johnson. I love both of those guys this week. Diontae Johnson, full participant in practice today, so it looks like he is pretty solid in coming back this week. Really excited to get him back into the fold because, we haven't seen him for a while, but the last time we saw him perform was actually the leading receiver in terms of targets on this team. So it should be a good thing to see him come back into the lineup. And then obviously Chase Claypool has been dominant up to this point. We'll see what he can do. Eric Ebron, at this point, you probably need to start him just based on the tight end landscape. I think he'll be an okay start this week. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster is obviously the biggest question mark here. He has been on the field. He's been running a lot of routes. He's been getting a lot of snaps. He has not been getting any production, and it's been depressing because he's a really good player. He's a 1,400-yard receiver. He's still incredibly young. I don't know whether this is the Steelers just proving that they don't need him, so that way they don't feel like I don't get it. Like, has he done something to aggravate Mike Tomlin? Is he not as good as we thought he was? I just don't know. At this point, though, it's very difficult to trust Juju and Watts. As soon as you bench him, he's probably going to go off for like a 35-point game, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. I'm keeping him on my bench if I have him in seasonal leagues until we see otherwise, unless you're just stuck and you don't have any other better options. James Washington, I think, gets relegated back to the wide receiver 4 now that Diontae Johnson is there and Chase Claypool is coming into the fray. So both of those guys are just fringe starts for me, not someone I'm looking to play. And know the Steelers defense has been dominant for fantasy, but I'm not playing any defenses against Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry at this point. Speaking of the devil, I'm still starting Tannehill this week against the Steelers defense because he's just been that good. He's been ridiculous for fantasy, ridiculous for real football. And at this point, the Titans have to be one of the teams you have to consider as Super Bowl favorites. Derrick Henry went absolutely bananas last week. We see him kind of do this every year where he starts the season a little bit slow, and as it ramps up, he just starts getting stronger and stronger. This will be a really tough matchup for him going against the best run defense in the league. We'll see who ends up winning that battle, but I'm always going to put my money down on Derrick Henry, so we'll see what he can end up doing this week. Don't expect a 40-point game that he gave you last week, but definitely could still have a good game here. A.J. Brown has been everything that we've needed him to be, coming back and helping Ryan Tannehill have his dominant option there. Get Corey Davis back this week as well, but considering the matchup, probably not going to force him into the lineup, especially with Humphries there. Now, the real question mark here comes with this little star I've got next to Jonnu Smith and Anthony Firkser. So Anthony Firkser obviously got the touchdown last week as Jonnu Smith was in the game, but he left early, and then Firkser ended up having, I believe it was 8 catches on 9 targets. So if Jonnu Smith is out or limited, I think Firkser is the better play here. But if Jonnu Smith is able to log a full practice participation by Friday, I think you're going to go back to the well with Jonnu, and then Firkser will probably just be a one-off. Got to monitor that injury report here. Whoever ends up being the starter, whoever looks healthier, is going to be someone I'm going to be throwing into my lineup because the Titans have been targeting their tight ends a lot up to this point. Pruitt is still out on the COVID IR, so one of these guys is probably going to have a good game. Hopefully we have some clarity by Sunday as to whether or not Jonnu Smith is healthy. I'm not playing either defense in this one, but should be a really fun game. I'm going to call my shot here and still say the Titans are going to remain undefeated. I got them winning 29-24. As I mentioned, the Steelers do find a way to lose these games historically. They've been a different team up to this point, so maybe that's not going to hold true this time, but I got the Titans going 6-0 this week.